Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name's Coral Jones, and welcome to Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse first Facebook Live. I'm really pleased to be able to do this, to connect with you all, so that hopefully we can use this page to help each other heal and support one another. Because I've been through probably the same sorts of things that you have, and I found that when I was healing, that the best thing for me was to actually share my experiences with other people and realize that I was not the only one. One of the things that I found was that, to begin with, when I didn't know anybody else, the first experience I had was whilst I was going through my divorce. I met a guy who I'd already known as a teenager, I suppose, and I didn't really understand why he was playing games with my head or what the games even were. I thought there was just something wrong with me. Had I had other people to talk to about it and understood what narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths were, then I think I might have had a better time, and I probably wouldn't have had as many experiences with them as I have. I've had more than my fair share, I can tell you. So if you've ever come across a narcissist, it's very unlikely that you would have come away unscathed completely, because these people are usually very charming, very funny, and charismatic, with the ability to kind of captivate you instantly, get your attention, and seem really attractive and exciting straight away. They become very close to you straight away, and they seem to be your perfect partner, perfect friend, or business partner. They can be found in any walk of life, and they can be any class or creed or sexuality even. So narcissistic personality disorder, which is the main thing we're talking about, the dictionary definition is actually someone who has excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. But today we're going to be talking about NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, and that differs from just plain narcissism. You can get narcissistic people that aren't necessarily narcissists, if that makes sense, because they haven't got narcissistic personality disorder. They are just on the scale, if you like. I think there is probably a scale of narcissism, and to a certain extent you'll probably find that teenagers have quite a lot of the traits, as do some young people who maybe have been brought up to be a little bit more interested in themselves than perhaps they should be, because our society is changing. They say that narcissism is on the increase, but I don't think they mean narcissistic personality disorder. I think they're two different things. But feel free to disagree with me on that. NPD is actually what's called in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is something produced by the American Association for Mental Health, or something like that, American Psychiatric Association, that's it. They define NPD as what's called a cluster B disorder, and there are a few things that come under that. One of them is antisocial personality disorder, which to you and me is a sociopath or psychopath, very close. Borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. So it's one of those, and there's a number of traits that they use to characterize it. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. I can't diagnose people. What I tend to do though is, because I attract them so regularly, I've learned a lot of things that I would use to sort of classify them, and I'm writing about them to try and educate other people. So that's another reason that I'm doing this. I want to share with people to to help them avoid having to go through the things that I went through, as well as meeting one whilst I was going through my divorce. I later found out that because his behaviour was very similar to my ex-husband, that he was probably one as well. And since I've had a really bad experience a couple of years ago, having had a really long break from relationships and thinking that I was okay, I attracted somebody into my home who was a lodger, who I then developed a relationship with very quickly, and he was an utter total con man. So my only wish is that other people don't go through the pain and suffering and loss that I did, and that people learn that, I suppose, that these people can be anywhere, because I haven't just had relationship run-ins with narcissists. I think I've also come across them in the workplace. So workplace bullying is also another issue that, for whatever reason, best known to the universe, I think, I seem to know quite a lot about. I wish I didn't, but I do. And so in personal development, which I've been in for quite some time now, about 10 years, I've been running a coaching and training business in leadership and management as well. I have decided, I suppose, that I really ought to, as I've been given lemons, make some lemonade, and use the fact that I have all this knowledge about these kinds of people to help others not have to experience it. So that's one of my ultimate goals. And so I wanted to share with you who I am, what I've experienced, and a little bit about what I know, in the hope that we can help each other, because I'm still healing too. And you know, I coach clients, and I always find that I learn lots from them that's going to help me too. So anyway, so to carry on with NPD, it's estimated to be something between 1 and 6% of the population. I think my feeling is that there's possibly more than that, because they don't always present to sort of mental health authorities and things like that, because they don't see themselves as having anything wrong with them. They actually see themselves as being superior to other people in the human race, I think. Because one of the symptoms of being one is that they have very low or no empathy at all. So they don't have a conscience. They're not remorseful for things that they do. They do some of the most horrible things. I'm sure you probably know yourselves. In my particular example, when I was with, whilst I was going through my divorce, I was quite disbelieving, because I thought nobody would do something like that. And I find that every time I ask myself, why would someone do something like that, or nobody would do something like that, that usually I'm referring to someone with NPD or a psychopath or somebody of that ilk. And so I then refer to my instincts, which are usually just run. So that would be my advice to most people, is if you experience one, then run. You can't always do that, because sometimes you work with them. If that's the case, my gut feeling would be to say that to your employer that you'd like to move. You could take out a bullying case, but the chances are that if the narcissist or psychopath or sociopath is so minded, you may not win that, because they have a very good way of getting other people on side, who, according to the literature, are called lieutenants. Yeah, so because of that, I think it's often not a good idea to actually go down that road. The best thing you can do for yourself really is get out of the way, or have as little to do with those types of people as possible. So there are two lots of I don't know what you call them really, encyclopedias, I suppose, of mental health disorders that NPD is mentioned in. One is the DSM-5, which I've already mentioned, produced by the American Psychiatric Association. And there's also another one called the ICD-10, Classification of Mental and Behavioural Disorders, which tends to be used, was supposed to be the system used in America, but tends not to be, and is more often used in Europe. But the symptoms are grandiosity, with expectations of superior treatment from others, and I'm just going to read from my notes here so that I don't miss anything out for you. They get fixated on fantasies of power, success, intelligence and attractiveness for themselves. They have a self-perception of being unique, superior and associated with high status people and institutions. They need constant admiration from others. They have a sense of entitlement to special treatment and obedience from others. They are exploitative of others to achieve personal gain. They're unwilling to empathise with others' feelings, wishes or needs. They're intensely envious very often of others, and they believe that others are equally envious of them. And they can be pompous and very arrogant. On the other hand, there's also another thing which is more closely related to sociopathy or psychopathy, although none of those are actually defined in that way in either of those mental health documents. Antisocial behaviour disorder is really the closest thing that you'll get to a psychopath or a sociopath, and there's a different definition for that, but usually what you find is that I think there's a saying that goes along with this: all psychopaths and sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths. I think that's right. So in other words, most psychopaths and sociopaths are in fact narcissists by definition, but most narcissists don't necessarily have to be sociopaths or psychopaths. So that's the definition anyway, or the official definition. But if people would like to share their experiences when they come online, please do. If they feel that any of those things that I've listed are close to things that they've experienced, please do let me know. I have, well, I was about to detail some of the things that have happened to me, but I think I might run out of time in a minute. But just very quickly, the one that I told you about whilst I was going through my divorce, one of the things he did was he actually raped me. He got me pregnant in the process of doing that, and then denied that the child was his, because prior to that I'd been with someone else. Oh, and in the process of doing that as well, he threw me around the room. So they can also be very violent people when they feel like it. The only problem with them is they operate on the edge of the law. So in terms of learning how to spot one, if you're not sure, then I guess one of the best things you can do is come to a forum like this, or, I mean, there's loads of other forums out there. Share your experiences and find out what other people have experienced, whether they would agree that their partners or ex-partners even happen to be narcissists or psychopaths, and if you think that the criteria of your particular person is the same as theirs, then make sure you get out. I know that that's easier said than done, because there's a lot of terminology around this, but what you need to do is go no contact, because they'll do their best to keep you there all sucked in, because they like their narcissistic energy being fed. But what you need to do for your own safety is get away from them and try to find other things to do that get you away from the cognitive dissonance that you will probably experience as a result of feeling the feelings you've got for them at the same time as hating them for what they do to you, if that makes sense. So that's a brief overview of what narcissists actually are and the kinds of things that they do. I've only mentioned one thing, but I've got a whole host of stories that I'd really like to share with you. And if you've got any questions, then please type them in the comments box, and we can discuss them. We can discuss whether your experiences are similar to mine, and help all of us to understand what they are, how to avoid them, how to spot them in the first place, and how to heal. What's the best way to heal and learn to thrive. I've been through it several times, so this last time when I was actually engaged to be married to someone who turned out to be a completely different person right at the very end from what I thought they were. It took me, I think, about 7 months to really get to grips with it and get over it. Whereas in the past, the one that happened after my marriage, I think that took me probably, well, I was 8 years on my own, but that was a deliberate thing because I had a young son. I was a single parent. But I reckon I was probably, for the most part, over it after about 3 years. And I saw him 10 years later, which I believe was him hoovering. Don't know if any of you have heard the term hoovering. What they tend to do, because they don't want you to move on, is they pop up at various other periods in your life and let you know that they're there in the hope of being able to suck you back in again. That particular one had, in my 6-year on and off relationship with him, got me to go back to him so that it looked like it was me chasing him quite a few times. Although in the last couple of years I think we probably weren't together more times than we were, although, as I said, he used that against me, so I was never quite sure whether I was actually supposed to be with him or not. I'm sure some of you may have experienced that too, where they do your head in so much, and gaslighting is one of the tricks that they use, changing history. So they'll say something, and virtually in the same sentence they'll contradict themselves, or they'll claim that something happened when it didn't. Hi Isabel, nice to see you. If you've got any questions, just post them. That would be great, and we can talk about them. Really nice to see you. Yeah, I was saying about gaslighting. Gaslighting is named after a film that was made in the 1940s, and what it was is this guy kept turning the gaslight down, and this woman would say, "I'm sure it's getting darker in here," and he would say, "No, it's not. It's you. You're going mad." So gaslighting is a bit like crazy making. It's trying to make you feel like you're going mad, which is why I said actually sharing with other people in this way, or on a forum if you can. There's a lot of forums out there. Is a really good way of checking, because I found when I was going through all that, I needed validation. Why is he doing this? It's not normal to do things like this. Why am I feeling like this? I thought it was me. I thought it was me going completely mad. I didn't understand that's one of the tricks they use, is to try and get you to second guess yourself all the time. That's later on down the line though. Initially, if you want to spot a narcissist, there's a number of things that they do. One of them is called love bombing. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. And what it basically means is that they will lift you up to a great height, put you on a pedestal, give you lots of presents, make out that they're the perfect partner for you and you're the only thing that they need, and that sort of thing, and quite often very quickly try and isolate you from people as well, by either by saying not very nice things about them or claiming they don't like them for one reason or another. And often they'll do that in surreptitious ways as well, like for instance they might claim they're ill, or they've got something wrong with them that means they can't see someone, or they disagree fundamentally with something that they do. So you then feel bad about seeing that person. Oh, hold on. I've got Isabel asking a question. Love bombing. I've never heard that before. Okay, oh my, yeah. Well, not all sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists do it. But if you have it happen to you, it will feel like a whirlwind romance. And so if that's happening, then probably one of the best ways of dealing with it is to slow things down. Set some boundaries, you know, like for instance, I want to see you once a week or something like that, I don't know. You'll know what they are when you come across them. But if not, again, you can come to a place like this and we can share the sorts of things that you might want to do if you're feeling uneasy about someone. And if they transgress those boundaries, then the likelihood is that they probably are a narcissist, because narcissists don't get boundaries and they don't respect them. And although they know that they should, they don't, because their kind of modus operandi, if you like, is that they like control. They want to be in control of you. You are, in their view, a possession, a part of them. So if you set boundaries, they won't accept them, because they see you as being part of them and that you should do what they want you to do. That's part of their narcissism, if you like. So if you experience that very quickly on, then you probably are dealing with one, and need to get away as quickly as you can. Try not to get sucked into any relationship straight away. That's what I did. I could have got rid of mine within the first 3 days. Okay, Isabel, that's what happened to me. Okay, it was amazing. Then he left me in my most vulnerable, and I lost our baby. I'm broken. Oh, poor you. Yeah, well, that's very similar to what happened to me. Very similar. Mine raped, I was saying earlier on, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, Isabel. Mine actually raped me and then claimed that the baby that I was having wasn't his, which was laughable, because I actually, along with this gaslighting thing that he did, I actually thought for a while, I actually believed him that he'd said that. But then I realised that in between being with the other person and seeing him again, I'd had a period, so I couldn't possibly have been pregnant by the other guy. But he claimed for ages so much that I was, that I actually started to believe that I was. So with the gaslighting as well, and your vulnerable state, yeah. One of the things they like to do with being pregnant and things like that, very often the abusive behaviour starts as soon as you get pregnant, and that's when you realise I've made a big mistake. I mean, in my case, I was stupid, I already knew, but then again, like I said, he raped me, so I didn't have much choice in the matter. But in your case as a boy, I really feel for you. I really feel for you. Your best bet, okay, if you're having a baby, I don't know how far gone you are, but I often say this, I was lucky I lost mine. I mean, I don't really feel like that, because I actually wanted it. Despite everything, I wanted it. But in a way, it was a good thing for me, because if I had had it, I would have had to have something to do with him. And so would the baby, quite clearly. Unless I had just not said that he, not said that I knew who the father was. But that's a good thing, because then you won't have him being brought up in narcissistic ways. I mean, one of the things, the concern for my son, who's nearly 21 now, is that he's gonna pick up on his father's ways, you know, and subscribe to those and end up being like that himself and treat other women like that. That's always been my biggest fear. So all I can say is it doesn't feel like it right now, and you've probably had a lot of people say this sort of thing to you, but I'm going to say it anyway. It probably doesn't feel like it right now, but him leaving you, even though you're really vulnerable at the moment, it's probably the best thing for you and the baby, because you really don't want to be mucked around when you're going to get more vulnerable the more pregnant you get. And when you've got a small baby, you're even more vulnerable. I was vulnerable, and that's why I got with this one in the first place. I wouldn't have been with him, I don't think, had I not been. I was vulnerable because I was going through a divorce. But the interesting thing about it, I suppose, was that it taught me about what narcissists and sociopaths were, and I learned that my husband was in fact one as well. So I couldn't believe that their behaviour was so similar. So yeah, I don't know what else to say to you apart from that, Isabel. Whatever experiences you had with this person, learn from them and learn how to recognise them from what they were like. It's quite remarkable, I think. I've heard a number of people say how remarkable it is that you talk to a group of women. I mean, after this last experience I had, I joined a group of locally of women who were going through or had been through domestic violence, and it was just quite remarkable how we all looked at each other sometimes and thought we could be talking about the same man. We could all be talking, you know, we knew we hadn't had the same partner, but you know, the things that they do, the things that all our partners had done were so similar, we couldn't believe it. We thought it was the same person. They are really quite formulaic in so many ways. So whatever you hear, you probably, I mean, it's a good thing in some ways. Whatever you hear on here is likely to be someone else who's gone through something similar and who can help you by telling you what they did, either to get over it or deal with it or stop it happening. So that's why I've set this up, really, so that we can all help each other. I mean, I can learn things off you guys as well, you know. I'm I'm not immune. The amount I kicked myself having been through a marriage with someone, 6 years on and off with someone, and then 2 years ago almost completely lost my home, and I will tell you that story another time. Whether I've got time now, I'm not sure, but almost completely lost my home because of one. He ripped me off, caused a lot of trouble between me and my son, and also was very violent. He got done for that, thankfully. Yeah, I kicked myself so badly. Why didn't I know? Why didn't I recognise it, you know? I thought I was better. I thought I wasn't attracting that sort of person anymore. But what I should have done is not accepted what he said as gospel truth, because you don't know, you know, trust has to be earned. And I should have held back more in the beginning. You know, the love bombing thing was really key. I thought, oh, this is a whirlwind. And even some of my friends turned around and said, you know, just take a risk. You know, you haven't been with anyone for ages. You know, it's probably okay. You know, and all my friends and family were fooled. He was such a good actor. Honestly, he was such a good actor. Anyway, I'd like to field some more questions. Thank you, Isabel, for that, because that's helped, hopefully, some other people that were listening learn about what love bombing is, and also the other kinds of things that they can do, like discarding you, as the saying goes. That's the narcissist will have 3 stages: the idealization phase, where they that's the bit where they build you up and treat you like gold and buy you presents, and you feel like they're the partner that you've always wanted. Then there'll be another sort of phase where they're not quite so interested, which sometimes can be very short, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And then they'll do the discard, which will be, they basically treat you like a piece of nothing on the floor, and discard you like a piece of rubbish, really. And that is so shocking when they do that. You don't expect it. You keep wondering, where's that guy that I first knew? Where's that guy that I first knew? Why has he suddenly turned into this? How did that happen? How was I conned? Because that's basically what they are, is a con man. And or a con woman, because women can be narcissists as well. That's the bit that's so shocking. And it's worse in so many ways than a normal relationship breakup, because not only have you broken up with someone, you've just discovered usually that they weren't at all the person that you thought they were, because it was all an act. I was said about my last one that he could have got an Oscar because he'd fooled so many people. He even fooled his own family. So yeah, I do really feel for you, Isabel. I really feel for you. But the best thing you can do is make sure you go what's called no contact. That means nothing on social media. Block him from everything you possibly can. Block him from your phone. Don't let him near your home. And then cut him out of your life completely. He will try and get around that, because they always do, one way and another. But you need to be strong and keep strong. And keep coming to places like this or other forums, because there are other forums out there on the internet where you can talk to people going through similar things. And keep getting support from us, and we'll make sure you don't go back to him. And keep going, and make sure that your son or daughter doesn't have anything to do with someone like that, because they can. It's learned behaviour as well. I mean, they do say with narcissists that there is something lacking in their brains, that the empathy doesn't develop in the amygdala, and so that's why they don't have any feeling or understanding for anyone else. They don't actually have emotions, it would appear, other than extreme rage. So if you notice that when you're first with somebody, for instance, how they treat waiters and waitresses and things like that, look out for them being extremely rude or short with people, or family maybe, or friends, if they've got any, because that's another thing. Very often they don't, and they're quite often rude about their family and friends that they don't have. If they're like that, or full of rage right at the very beginning, then make sure you hold back, because that could well be someone who's a narcissist or a sociopath, because they are very often, well, they've probably done a lot of damage to a lot of other people, especially those that are really close to them, and they don't really want to know, and you'll suss that out very quickly. So any more questions? Has anyone got any more questions? Because if not, I think I should shut up. I think I've talked for quite a long time, and I'm hoping that what I've said, or some of what I've said, is quite helpful, even for people who come along later. And if there's something that I've raised that they're interested in, or think that they might have experienced, then they can just add to the thread, and I'll try and answer it that way. And I'm hoping to do these on a regular basis, so we can all get together, meet up over the internet, and speak about how we are and what we're experiencing. If we're going through no contact, then make sure that we all maintain that. If we're experiencing being at a low ebb because of some of the things that have been said, because another thing that narcissists often do is try and blacken your name amongst people you know, especially if you've been part of the same crowd, as it were, of friends. So once they lose control of you, they'll try and sort of control your image, as it were. What else do they do? Lots of things. Would you like me to go into some more things about what they do? Let's see now. Right, so we've already talked about love bombing. Isabel. Okay, lying. What about that? A lot of what they do is lying. We've already mentioned gaslighting. But if you find very early on in the relationship that they're lying about things, then definitely make sure that you run in the opposite direction. No friends, we've already mentioned. And what else did I want to mention? I mentioned about control. Oh yeah, protection. Okay, so how to protect yourself. If you've just gone into a relationship with someone and you suspect anything at all, you can in fact go to the police under something called Clare's Law, which allows you to find somebody's criminal background out, so that you can be aware of that before you go into the relationship. Clare's Law is actually named after someone called Claire Wood, who after she split up with her boyfriend, he pursued her and stalked her, which is very often something they do under hoovering, which I think I mentioned earlier. And then when he caught up with her, strangled her and burned her body. So I know it sounds pretty horrendous, but that is why they introduced this thing called Clare's Law, to protect people who are from going into relationships with people like that. However, it doesn't protect you if you're not in the relationship. The police won't give you the information. I know that because when I experienced it with my last one, I was not allowed to get access to his criminal records, but I did discover from his family that he had in fact been, well, he hadn't been prosecuted for it because it had been done as a lesser charge, but he had been originally arrested for attempted murder on his first ex-wife. So, I mean, I'm laughing, but that's a nervous laugh. He actually did threaten mine and my son's life. So, of course, I went to the police and said, can I get more information so that I can protect myself? And they said, no, because you're no longer in the relationship. So the best time to do that is, regardless of who you're with, do it anyway. Go straight to the police and say, can I have their records? Especially if you're a former victim, because they tend to go for people who are former victims. So that's one way of protecting yourself. Another way is that you can do identity checks. I've heard of people in America doing this, but in this country you can use 192.com to find out whether people live where they say they do, you know, whether they've got anybody else living with them, because that's another thing. Often narcissists have more than one partner. They're the kinds of people who do bigamy and stuff like that. So yeah, you can become a member of 192.com and check out their records, not necessarily the address, but the electoral roll. So that's another way of protecting yourself. And also, as I said before, I think set your own boundaries and make sure you stick to them. Make sure you stick to them, because they don't get boundaries. They don't understand that you're not part of them. So anyway, I hope you found some of that interesting and useful. Please leave any further comments or questions at the bottom of the thread, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'm not necessarily doing this full time, but I do training and coaching in leadership and management as well. I will get back to you as soon as I can, hopefully within 24 hours, but if not, just do bear with me, because I will do my best to help, and I'm hoping that this process will help all of us, and that this page will be a useful resource for us to come to and share and get support and heal one another. So, Coral Jones from Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse, signing off now, and thank you very much for listening and participating. Bye for now. Take care.